We are in a garage recording studio, Shabby Jeans Records. I am John Empty Talker, the PR manager here. In the band, I play bass. The studio occupies 10 square meters in a cell of an underground garage. We invested about $300 in the used equipment and second-hand guitars. Let me introduce our project manager, Captain Vincent, a former hippie. He is the heart of our band, Sand Development Project. Not long ago, a strange incident happened to him. He mistook the electrical panel for the refrigerator and stuck his hand in there to get a can of beer. He was electrocuted. He woke up and realized that he could dive into computer networks and be present in any streaming album as an observer or even a character in a play to see all from the inside. The band recently released an album, but he got there as a hero even before we recorded it. His role in the band is the producer. He plays keys and rhythm guitar. And now Turukton, the man bird. He is a stranger. He performs lead vocal and guitar. Mr. Kankanman, the speaker. He performs drums, noises, and backing vocals. Ladies and gentlemen, now, we present a new release of the band's Sand Development Project. Waiting for rock and roll.
Past we had learned the way the golden era would come, but today this is ruined away, nothing to get and out.
Rock and roll breathed its last gasp during the late 70s when the cosmic alignment that fueled its wild heartbeat sputtered out. 15 glorious years, the stars and planets had danced in perfect harmony, blessing the world with a golden age of untamed riffs and rebellious anthems. But then, the universe blinked, and the magic was gone. Musicians once drenched in the divine sweat of inspiration, now found themselves stranded in a dreary reality. Even in the sacred streets of London, the birthplace of legends, they could feel it in their bones, the time was wrong. The spark was snuffed to force them to methodically churn out albums as bland and lifeless as soggy toast. The fire that once fueled their creativity had dwindled to a flicker, and the riffs they conjured were as stale as fish and chips. But not our hero. Oh no, not him. While the world trudged forward in the gray monotony of the post-rock era, he clung to the fading echoes of those electric days, convinced that the spirit of rock and roll was merely sleeping, not dead. His heart pounded to a beat that no one else could hear, his soul forever tuned to a frequency that had long since vanished from the airwaves. In a world that had moved on, our hero stood defiantly, a relic of a time gone by, waiting for the second coming of rock and roll, like a devout disciple awaiting the return of a messiah. Because he knew, deep down in the core of his being, that rock and roll was not dead. It was just biding its time, resting for the moment when it would rise again to blow the dust off the turntables. Rock and roll died in the late 70s. 15 years of favorable positions of the stars and planets were over. Now, even in the right place like London, the musicians understood that the time was now wrong and methodically churned out boring albums. Anyway, our hero was waiting for the second coming of rock and roll. Unfortunately, his hopes turned out to be false. The long-awaited resurrection of rock and roll never materialized. Instead, the world moved on without looking back, embracing new sounds and trends that left our hero feeling like a relic trapped in the wrong era. Despite the growing evidence against his belief, he held on a little longer, convincing himself that the revival was just around the corner. But as years passed and the world's taste shifted further away from the primal roar of rock, reality began to sink in. The second coming he had so fervently awaited was not to be. In the end, he found himself standing alone, surrounded by dusty vinyl records and fading posters, a lone apostle in a world that had moved on. The fire that had once burned so brightly in his heart dimmed, leaving only a faint ember of nostalgia. And as the years continued to roll by, even our hero had to admit that the music had changed forever, and the era he loved was truly gone. Once upon a time, our hero lived the quintessential hippie dream, nestled in a tent within a vibrant commune deep in the countryside. He had a beloved wife, Aphrodite, whose beauty and spirit were as wild and free as the flowers they sniffed together. Their days were filled with simple pleasures of life, nibbling on mushrooms that expanded their minds, swaying to the rhythm of the music that flowed endlessly, and embracing the ethos of peace and love that bound their community together. Every evening, the commune gathered under the stars, their voices rising in unison to chant peace and love, believing that this mantra could ward off evils of the world. Winds of change were already blowing, and a storm was brewing on the horizon. War had crept closer, its shadow darkening their utopia. One fateful day, stern-faced officials marched into the commune. Without a second thought, they began drafting members into military service, tearing apart the fabric of their peaceful existence. Sensing the impending doom, our hero turned to Aphrodite. He whispered his plan to move their tent deeper into the forest, where the trees could shelter them from the world's madness. With a heart full of hope, he began the arduous task of relocating their life, convinced that they could still find peace away from prying eyes. But when he returned to the commune to fetch Aphrodite, he found only emptiness where her laughter used to ring. She was gone. Aphrodite had left him for a successful manager, who promised her the comforts and security that the nomadic life could not. Our hero's world crumbled, and he wept bitter tears, his heart shattered by the betrayal. But even in his grief, he held no ill will toward her. Instead, he turned to the heavens, pleading with Providence to spare Aphrodite from any punishment for her rash decision. He took the blame, believing that his failure to protect her had led to this tragic turn of events. And Providence, it seemed, had listened, but our hero would bear the burden. Seeking solace, he embarked on a summer vacation to a Mediterranean resort, hoping to drown his sorrows in the sun and sea. But fate had other plans. The local peasants, a notorious group with a cruel reputation, saw in him an easy target. They captured him, stripping away his freedom, and forced him into grueling labor under the blazing sun. For nearly a year, our hero toiled in captivity, his spirit slowly eroding under the weight of his chains. But just when hope seemed lost, a miracle occurred. Superman, the caped crusader himself, happened to be flying by on some heroic errand. Spotting our hero, he had acted without hesitations. He swooped down, breaking the hold with ease, and, without a word, scooped our hero into his arms. Together, they soared through the skies, leaving the Mediterranean behind as they headed home. Finally, our hero came to a sobering realization: love and peace might feed the soul, but money made the world go round. If he could amass a fortune, Aphrodite would return to him, dazzled by the glitter of wealth and security. Ignoring the sage advice of his grandfather, who had always warned, think first, then act, our hero threw caution to the wind. He sold his tent, the last remnant of his carefree days, and every possession he had left, gathering what little capital he could. Full of reckless hope, he marched into a casino, convinced that fortune would favor his daring. But as the neon lights flickered and the roulette wheel spun, it became clear that fate had no such plans. Our hero watched in stunned disbelief as his dream slipped through his fingers until he had nothing left, not a single cent to his name. Shamefully, this was a disco-style tragedy. On its polished beats and glitzy allure, disco sprouted like a weed choking out a raw, untamed spirit of rock and roll. And so, penniless and broken, our hero was left to ponder the cruel twists of fate. The wealth he sought was as elusive as the music that once defined his life, and Aphrodite was gone, lost to a world that valued gold chains and glittering dance floors over guitars and flower crowns. The dream had ended, and the harsh morning light revealed a world he no longer recognized.
The iron cast to death grows in the dark bloody lines of crying. Nobody hears your last damn yes. You want to be in the core of the fire. Dance in the fire tonight. 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 How easy I'm hearing here to roll and rock.
Time passed, and our hero grew old, his once vibrant spirit dimming with the years. Illness took hold of him, and as his body weakened, his mind began to wander into the foggy realms of delirium. But in these fevered dreams, rock and roll, long gone from the world, came back to life with a vengeance. In his dreams, he was young again, standing on a stage with a guitar in his hands, the power of the music surging through him like electricity. Beside him were his old friends, long since passed away, each with guitars slung over their shoulders, just like in the old days. They played together, their music filling the air with the raw, wild energy of rock and roll as if the decades had never passed. Confetti rained down from above, swirling in the air like a celebration of all that was lost and found again. Serpentines flew, twisting through the air in colorful streams. Fireworks burst into brilliant blooms of light, painting the night sky. And then, amidst the joyful chaos, he saw her, Aphrodite. She had aged, and her beauty softened over time, but in his eyes, she was still the woman he loved so fiercely. She approached him, and at that moment, he knew that she wanted to come back and reclaim the love they had once shared. They sat together for a while, reminiscing about the past, sharing mushrooms just like they used to, the taste of nostalgia bittersweet on their tongues. But they both understood that too much had changed. The years had carved new paths in their lives, and the love they once knew had transformed into something else, something more like friendship. They smiled at each other, the decision unspoken but clear: they would remain just friends. Around them, the party raged on, an endless celebration of peace and love, as if the world had finally found its way back to the ideals they had once held dear. The crowd chanted peace and love in unison, their voices rising like a wave, carrying by the echoes of a time that had passed but was never forgotten.